So I'm going to be giving you an introductory talk about our Reaching Your Potential workshop. And we will start by, if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we will start first by exploring what potential means to us. And potential, to be honest, it means many things depending on the person. It could be professional development, or it could be personal development or self-growth. But the definition of potential is having or showing the capacity to develop into something in the future. And understanding what potential might mean to you and working towards reaching it involves practicing the following 4 components. Self-awareness, first of all, that's the foundation of reaching your potential, and then self-acceptance, self-compassion, and self-confidence. And we will explore these elements individually. And in our workshops, we would explore this more in depth with a number of group and individual activities. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So first of all, self-awareness. So we would ask participants just to take a moment to think about what really matters to them deep in their hearts, and maybe what personal strengths and qualities you want to develop. In this workshop, what we want to do, we want to rewire our minds. We oftentimes have the tendency to focus more on the negative aspects of our personality or in our lives, and we might focus attention more maybe on our weaknesses. We will talk about the negativity bias later on. So here what we want to do, we want to explore the positive skills and abilities, values and qualities that we have. Maybe some of them are our legacies, something that were passed on to us, maybe people in our lives and in present or in the past. And we want to look at all of that, our activities, the activities that we enjoy, the environment we are living in, and we would have a very deep, in-depth conversation about this. So this would be self-awareness. The next component is, if you could go, yes, self-acceptance. And self-acceptance is a tricky one, right? Because it involves, first of all, sitting with difficult emotions in the moment. And sometimes we don't want to do that. We have sometimes a tendency to push our emotions away, and oftentimes they come back almost like in a boomerang effect, or we might hold on to these emotions a lot and we over-identify with them. So what we want to do here, first of all, turn towards your emotions with acceptance. So we want to become aware of the emotion and what it feels like, just to identify it, even where you can sense it in the body. And it could be something like, gosh, I find it really hard to breathe now. And I feel I feel very tense in my neck and my back. And maybe after that, you want to label that emotion. Just identify how does it feel. And maybe you want to say something like, maybe it could be something like, well, actually, I feel ashamed now, or I feel embarrassed. And I want to then try to make a little bit more room into accepting that emotion. Not denying that emotion or over-identifying with it, just acknowledge and accepting that it is a part of the here and now experience. And acknowledge as well that it's impermanent, that yes, it's how you're feeling now and it might be very difficult, but even though the emotion feels overwhelming, remember that it will pass. And that might be a good opportunity to even practice a little bit of a self-affirmation and maybe say something like, well, just because I feel like this now doesn't mean that I will always feel like this, or this too shall pass. I'm trying to do the best I possibly can with the skills that I have in the here and now. And maybe you want to inquire and investigate a little bit more about that. Oh, I wonder what triggered me. Why am I feeling like this? But always, as Melanie was saying just a moment ago, in a kind, gentle manner, rather than labeling it. And so with curiosity, not with a sense of judgment. And last but not least, just letting go of the need to control your emotions. Just notice that these emotions and thoughts are there, and they will come and they will pass. They are like the weather. They alter that the weather. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So the next one is self-confidence. And in order to gently develop that, well, my colleague Kirk will talk a little bit more in depth about this. But what we can do is challenging that critical self-talk And oftentimes we struggle to fulfill our potential because of a lack of belief in ourselves, or because we have little self-confidence. It might be that, the self-critical voice is so common that it's almost in an autopilot mode and we don't even notice it. So this is the opportunity to gently turn, to focus, narrow the focus of attention into the thoughts and feelings that you're experiencing now. And if you notice that there is a voice, an inner voice that has a quite self-critical quality, that might be a good opportunity to gently and with curiosity and kindness challenge it. And how can we do this? A way of doing this could be by, maybe using or thinking about our positive personal attributes. Maybe you want to think of situations in the past challenges or difficult situations that you overcame, and what positive qualities within you helped you to overcome this challenge. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I mentioned briefly before what the negativity bias was, and this is the tendency to register negative stimuli over more readily and to dwell onto this event. And it has its purpose. Our minds evolved to problem solve, as Melanie said before. So we have the tendency to focus on the negative aspects of our lives to keep ourselves safe. So now what we want to do, we want to rewire that mind and to also focus on the things that oftentimes go under the radar. Why we want to focus on the positive aspects of our lives and on our personal qualities. Because when we focus too much on the negative side of things, we might feel less motivated and less inclined to achieve or to reach our potential. So if you could go to the next slide, please. A good way to do that would be by developing a growth mindset to prepare for, so to speak, failure or difficulties in life. So adopting and maintaining a personal growth mindset is what is needed in order for you to reach that potential. And here are some tips. So first of all, viewing that failure in a different light. So seeing this crisis as an opportunity to grow, change, and learn from that experience. And in order to do that, we need to be curious learners. As I said before, it's about noticing what is happening for us with curiosity and in a non-judgmental manner. I wonder what I can learn from this experience. So make those challenges your best friend. Even if I don't achieve this goal, I'm sure that I will learn something from that. And be consistent with that. You might want to gain inspiration from others. We are social animals. We need that support. And take part in activities that you love, work and personal. We oftentimes neglect our self-care. So we need to put that self-care on top of, or on our priority list. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And next is motivation. Motivation is a big one, and we have long discussions about this in the workshops. And motivation is said to have three components. So first of all, the activation, the decision to do something. I want to learn to play the guitar. The intensity, the amount of effort that goes into doing it. I'm going to do it, 3 times per week after work. And the perseverance, how long you can keep up with this effort. So in order to achieve this goal, you need to take into consideration these three components. So oftentimes I ask people, well, what do you think that makes you lose motivation? Maybe you feel demoralized or burned out or stuck. Maybe you lost the spontaneity, or maybe you're neglecting your self-care. You're not in touch with your creative side. So why am I asking these questions? We need to notice what is making us lose motivation, what gets in the way, what are our barriers. It is important to keep in mind those barriers in order to make our goals smart. Could you go to the next slide, please? So here are some tips and some ideas on how to maintain this motivation. So first of all, SMART goals, set achievable goals. If you are not able to achieve that goal, it doesn't mean that you will never achieve it. It just means that you need to break it down to more realistic goals, and then maybe change that interpretation of failure as an opportunity to grow and learn from it. And then you might want to, again, rewire your mind, focus on past achievements, focus on what helped you, to achieve those goals in the past. And we need to, set a structure and set deadlines and working blocks. That's also very important. And acknowledge your small achievements. That's another good way of focusing and narrowing the focus of attention into the positive rather than the negatives. And find an accountability partner. It's always better, as Becca was saying, if we find a friend that can support us throughout the challenge.